Become a leader in the emerging fintech space through NYU Stern's Master of Science in Fintech program. This one-year part-time program is designed with full-time working professionals in mind. To learn more about the program, submit your resume for a candidacy review at stern.nyu.edu/MSFT-BreakingBanks. Welcome to Breaking Banks, the #1 global fintech radio show and podcast. I'm Brett King.
And I'm Jason Henricks. Every week since 2013, we explore the personalities, startups, innovators, and industry players driving disruption in financial services.
From incumbents to unicorns, and from cutting-edge technology to the people using it to help create a more innovative, inclusive, and healthy financial future. I'm JP Nichols, and this is Breaking Banks.
Welcome back to Breaking Banks. I am your host, Brett King, and we are back in the podcast studios today. We got a really interesting guest today. You know, unless you've been sort of sitting under a rock in terms of e-commerce developments and so forth, there's still a lot of things happening in the e-commerce space. And one of the things that's really interesting here is with the advancements we see of various infrastructure players, you know, for example, Stripe and RDN and others, this element of e-commerce infrastructure seems to be colliding with fintech and financial services in a pretty big way. And so the guest that we have on today is really sort of going to give us some insight into this. And it's a brand I'm sure you're well aware of. And that is Shopify. So Vikram Anredi, Head of Product for Financial Services at Shopify. Welcome to Breaking Banks, Vikram.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you've got a pretty interesting background. You started in the consulting world, but you moved into the social media space a few years ago. You've done work with Meta. You also with Instagram for a few years, and you've been at Shopify now for a few years. You started as a director of product. You're now the head of product for financial services. So there's a clear alignment with our audience. But before we jump into what you're doing at Shopify, tell me about how you went from being a consultant to this specialist on product and SME type infrastructure on the social side.
Thank you, Brett. In some ways, I tell people my career is a bit of a random walk. I've usually chased interesting problems to work on. When I first started my career, actually, if I back up a little bit, I started out as an electrical engineer, building wireless technology at Qualcomm.
Oh, really cool.
Yeah. I was deep in the labs building chipsets and technology for wireless communication. That's where I started. I got bored out of it, and then...
And you spent some time at Apple as well, right?
That's right. That was on iPhone 5 or iPhone 6. If I remember. It's a long time ago. And then I went to consulting. I worked at McKinsey for a few years. So I went from working on very deep technical problems to work on fairly large business problems, which was a very interesting learning experience. But I've always been, as an engineer, I've always been a builder at heart. So I was in San Francisco, then transitioned back into product. And for the last 8 years, I've been building products at various companies, Meta and Instagram included. And the one unifying theme has been that I have really enjoyed building products for entrepreneurs and small business owners. Right? That is what I did at Instagram for several years, where I helped build products to help small businesses find an audience organically or through ads on Instagram, then helped creators make money on Instagram. That's the other part. And then about 3.5 years ago, I moved to Shopify. And one of the core reasons I moved to Shopify was to really, what better place to build for entrepreneurs and business owners than Shopify, which supports millions of merchants build their businesses. And at Shopify now, I lead the financial services product area, which is basically, fundamentally, we believe money is commerce, commerce is money, and merchants really have to manage their money well. And we're just building out a suite of products to help our merchants stretch their cash flows, manage their money, all within the Shopify platform.
Very cool. because there's been this explosion of sort of the creator economy, you can't watch any sophisticated, a creator or influencer on one of these channels where they don't have a merchandising angle or something like that, Like I'm a bit of a fan of this game. I don't know whether you heard of it, called Rust. It's a sort of a survival game, and all of the major guys on YouTube and so forth, and Insta that have their followings around this that are really, like professional level on this that make a living out of this. They all have their merch stores now. They're
Absolutely.
selling mouse pads and things. So like the ability to spin up a store for a creator is sort of, it's a basic element of their revenue today, right?
Absolutely. I think I used to build monetization products for creators to help them make money on Instagram. And, the media business has always been a diversified business, right? Media business has always made money through content and ads, through subscriptions, through and commerce. And now for creators, we make it so easy on Shopify to build your store. So why wouldn't you, right? And increasingly, we are also making it easy for creators to actually build a store which stocks products from other brands. Right. And it's like we call this collectives, and it's really, really powerful tools for creators to monetize their presence,
I think that's clear. And I see that, the ability, to have these platforms that support SMEs, I think with AI and agency-based stuff, that's going to become even more critical, right?
Absolutely.
I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah.
So tell me, a couple of days ago, you launched Shopify Finance. It's this new hub, but rather than me sort of explain it, tell me about what Shopify is doing on the finance side for that mission you talked about in terms of helping creators.
Yeah. So let me actually back up a little bit and tell your audience a little bit about Shopify just in a snapshot, and then I'll tell you about why we are doing things in the fintech space. So Shopify, I mean, as I think most of your listeners would know, is a fairly large commerce platform, right? We help entrepreneurs and merchants set up their stores and sell, and merchants can do this very, very quickly and very effectively, right? And we operate in 175 countries. Merchants in 175 countries can create stores. We have millions of merchants building their commerce businesses on Shopify today. And we account for about 10% of e-commerce GMV in the US, second only to Amazon. So that is the scale at which Shopify is operating. And I would say Shopify is, like, in some ways, our DNA or our purpose is basically we are on this relentless pursuit of breaking down barriers to entrepreneurship, breaking down the friction that exists for merchants to build their commerce businesses. And we keep doing this, right? I think when Toby, who's our founder, started the company a while ago, we built something called Shopify Payments, all to help merchants be able to accept credit card payments online. This was 15, 20 years ago when it was much harder, right? And then we transitioned to building that over Stripe and so on. So in some ways, our core purpose has been to reduce friction. Wherever friction lies, we go in, try to help merchants with that friction. And as I said before, money is commerce and commerce is money. And a lot of our merchants, I mean, when we talk to them, we continue to hear about the amazing amounts of challenges they have in managing their money well, right? E-commerce is a very interesting space. Our merchants start out very early in their journey with Shopify, and a lot of them can't even get a business bank account.
I mean, that's what I was gonna say. Like I've run businesses that have merchant components to them before, and just the process of trying to get a merchant account, and getting contracted so you can accept credit card payments is still in most countries around the world a very lengthy and extensive and complicated process, and there's no guarantee that you can do that. So how do you do e-commerce if you can't accept credit card payments? Right? It's like. And yet this is a functional issue in the system, and we're trying to make payments faster. We've got faster payments initiatives like UPI and Pix and other things like that. But if you can't get a merchant account, to accept payments,
That's exactly it. And in some ways, that is something that we have, I think, done a pretty good job at solving, working with Stripe and other providers, right? Now, I think entrepreneurs can get started and accept payments with in a level of ease that was not there many years ago. And we're trying to do the same thing with banking, right? Because we want to help entrepreneurs open business bank accounts so that they can separate personal and business finances easily.
Awesome.
Access to capital, is a big challenge. I think you hear study after study talking about how hard it is for SMBs to access capital for their business. And the other thing we try to do is try to build these banking or financial services specifically for e-commerce merchants, tailored to what e-commerce merchants need on our platform, right? And that's why we built Shopify Finance. Shopify Finance, basically what it does is it brings together a set of financial services that we built in conjunction with various partners, all of these financial services into a single hub where merchants can manage their money, manage their insights about their business and finances, access all their financial accounts, access tools like bill pay and sales tax management, all in one single place within the Shopify admin. The Shopify admin is where merchants are running their commerce business. So it's a deeply embedded and integrated experience that we deliver with Shopify Finance to help our merchants manage their money where they make it.
I mean, I think, if you look at the complexity of setting up a small business bank account and things like that today, it's still complicated in a lot of parts of the world. I'm working on a new book at the moment and talking about the changes to the branch business that's happening. And as part of that, I did research on how many of the top 100 banks in the US alone and allow you to set up a small business bank account online. And it's only a handful. It's not like 10% or 20%, it's like 3%, right? And that's pretty shocking in today's world that it is, still so difficult for small business operators to get into the finance system and start running their business on those existing rails. It's almost exclusionary, because of these sort of processes and policies we've had hang over from the traditional banking space. I think that small business operators, as you know, make up a huge portion of the economy.
Oh, yeah. I think especially in countries like the US and Canada and some of these countries, SMBs, small businesses drive the vast majority of employment, right?
Yes.
And I think it's an interesting thing, Brett, where I feel like consumer banking experience with traditional banks is much further ahead than SMB banking experience in terms of the modernization of it, in terms of the ability to access these services on the go on mobile apps and things like that. It just hasn't somehow. I think it's really lagging. The SMB experience is very lagging.
But I'll give you a bit of perspective on that because because I do a lot of talking head stuff for banking associations around the world. That's this platform and my writing has sort of given me that opportunity. And a lot of times when I'm putting up these use cases of how fintech is exploding all around the world, how payments are changing, how merchant funding is changing, like what's happened in China with merchant funding and SME businesses on the platforms there and so forth. You'll often get the reaction from these traditional commercial banking guys that look after the SME space. Say, yeah, but that's retail. That's not our business.
Yes.
And it's like, why do you think? Why can you possibly, how could you possibly imagine that having that complexity is good for your business, given what we're demonstrating in terms of sort of seamless application of technology in the retail side? How could how can you expect customers are going to accept that level of complexity in the commercial SME side when you've got, these seamless experiences happening in retail? And when you look at the fastest growing SME lenders and SME banks now, they tend to be those that have that better customer experience with a lower friction.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I think all these SMEs are individuals, are people who are building businesses. A business owner was trying to do a bunch of things and they need this, and they're used to a certain level of ease in their consumer banking experience, and they want the same in the SMB banking experience. And And by the way, this is one of the fun things that I enjoy building for small businesses is at the end of the day, they're individual entrepreneurs who are trying to do something for their business. And building for them is like, I think at Shopify, we try to actually really build consumer grade experiences for our merchants.
Become a leader in the emerging fintech space through NYU Stern's Master of Science in Fintech program. This is a 1-year part-time program divided into 1 online and 6 on-site modules that take place in New York and in rotating global locations. The MSFT, Master of Science Fintech program, is designed for experienced working professionals who want to strengthen their fintech skills or transition into fintech leadership positions. The final application deadline for the MSFT class of 2026, beginning May in 2025, is March the 1st. GMAT and GRE scores are generally not required. To learn more about the program, submit your resume for a candidacy review at stern.nyu.edu/MSFT-BreakingBanks. Let's talk about the experience as a merchant. So if I'm coming in and I want to set up a store and I've got an idea, I've got some merch that I want to do or some product that I want to move, but I have, I don't have, I've got my own personal bank account, but I'm starting to get enough traction as a creator. I'm thinking about setting up a business and using this platform to sort of help me execute on that. As a Shopify customer, I don't know if you call them customers or clients or merchants, of course. Okay. Yeah. As a Shopify merchant and I'm coming into this experience, where do I start and how does this new admin tool and so forth that you've created and the apps, how does that help me through that process?
Yeah, let's play through the merchant journey here. A lot of merchants, as you said, actually start building their Shopify store on day 1 or day -1 of their business, right? They have a dream, they have an idea, they come to Shopify, build their store, start stocking up products. It takes a little bit of time for them to set up their ads and things and drive sales, right? But as soon as they set up their store on Shopify, merchants can actually get a Shopify balance account. The Shopify balance account is basically a business account where they can manage all their money. When they start selling on Shopify, they get payouts on their sales, store sales, much, much faster than using an external bank account. Instantly, they're able to separate their personal and business finances. As they grow, we observe how certain businesses are doing, how these merchants are doing, what is the traction they have, the engagement that the entrepreneur has in the store and everything, right? And based on that, they will now start getting new offers for credit card or offers for capital, which is our 2 of our products where Shopify Credit offers credit cards, business credit cards to merchants, and Shopify Capital offers MCAs or loans to our merchants. And what merchants will see as they grow is that they will see tailored offers presented to them within the Shopify admin for these products. So merchants a lot of times start out with a Shopify Capital loan, right? It's basically you get an offer in the admin, you can apply for it in minutes, and 80 to 90% of them will get automatically approved instantly, and funds are in your bank account in 2 business days.
So are you so that initial business account that gets set up so people can start accepting payments on the store, that starts from scratch. Is that like prepaid rails that you're using for that, or what are you using as like a thin DDA, right?
So when you start setting up, actually, I think I did not say this, but the first thing you do is set up a Shopify payments account, which is built on Stripe rails, right? So that you start collecting payments. And then you set up a Shopify balance account, which is like in some ways a business banking solution where your payouts go and where you can manage your money. It has all the features of any business bank account.
Right.
And then
you guys don't have a banking license, so you're operating like a fintech, sitting on top of a issuing bank, right?
That's right. So we are a tech company. We're not a bank. So we work basically with Stripe as our BaaS platform for some of our products, especially for our Shopify payments, for our banking products, as well as cards. And then for our loans products, like for capital and MCA, we work directly with bank partners in various
right in each of those markets, because credit
right.
underwriting is a different story.
That's right.
But I'm impressed because, obviously we've had Stripe on the show numerous times, but to me, if you're talking about an online business of the scale, and the function that you're talking about, these sorts of definitions of geographical banking don't make a lot of sense, because you can have, especially on the Shopify platform, I'm going to be able to send, my goods and services anywhere in the world, essentially off this platform. And so why can't banking have that same flexibility? And it's like, it's next generation players like Stripe and others,
that's right.
That are building essentially what I call this next generation financial services infrastructure. I make this comment often when I'm on the speaking circuit about the fact that you want to be looking at those organizations that, in terms of technical agility, have platforms that make it really super easy for partners to plug in and execute on this sort of stuff without extensive paperwork and so forth. And you're going to have in many traditional banks, and I'm sure you found this from an integration perspective as well, that integrating with someone like Stripe is going to be far simpler and quicker for you as a platform than doing the agreements and getting the integration for local credit deals and things like that.
That's
Tell
right.
me, what role does cash flow play in credit underwriting? Because that's a trend that we've seen emerge in other platforms, like with Alipay and Alibaba merchant accounts and so forth.
So one of the secret sauces that we bring to the table, right? We actually work with a bunch of these partners, but one of the things that we bring to the table is the ability to underwrite our merchants. And in a lot of ways, we look at a lot of data that we have on the platform. We see how engaged our merchants are with the product, how their traffic to this stores is trending, how are their sales trending, right? In some ways, we are underwriting based on that kind of data versus the cash flow data.
Right.
We actually have a lot more visibility into store performance. So our capital loans product, for example, right? We, based on all of the data that we have about merchants, first of all, we run 10% of e-commerce, 10% of e-commerce.
Right. So you've got a sizable base of data to draw on.
That's right. And based on that, and also based on that, we provide personalized, tailored funding offers to merchants in the admin. As I said, they can apply in minutes, get funding right away. And these are like MCA products where merchants pay back as a percentage of daily sales. As they sell, they pay back the loan right at the top, right? And our merchants love this product. By the way, Shopify Capital has been in market since 2016. We've given out more than $5 billion of funding to hundreds of thousands of merchants. And we really see
$5 billion. That's a lot. Like, that's not far off what Amazon's doing.
Yeah. I think, we love it that Amazon is doing this, Square is doing this. It's great that more and more folks are providing access to credit and capital to small businesses, because really small businesses need this, right? And the same way, so this is how capital works. We underwrite merchants based on their funding. And the most interesting thing I will tell you, Brett, is these stories of merchants we see, right, on our platform, where merchants start out by taking $1,000 loan because they are very small, and they grow. As they grow, we give them bigger and bigger offers, and merchants are now, they grow up on the platform. They push us to grow the product alongside them, and now they're taking loans of $1 million, right? So this is a story that repeats itself again and again at Shopify, where merchants are really growing on the platform, and our financial services products keep up with them, and the funding offers they get keep track of their scale, basically. So that's an example of how we do underwriting, right? And the other product we have, Shopify Credit, which is the other product where we launched it last year, but we are making a big update right now. It's a credit card product. Again, it's built on the same underwriting platform. We give you an offer, a tailored credit card offer in the admin. Again, it's built for e-commerce merchants. So when you use the card, you get cash back on things that you spend, like marketing, B2B wholesale, and shipping labels, right? up to 3% cash back. And again, we build in a lot of repayment flexibility. For example, you can either pay the card back in full at the end of the month or choose to pay it over time from daily sales for a fee. Again, we are kind of bringing in this. What we bring in is
it's a very interesting way of managing risk for you guys as well. It's smart,
Yeah, absolutely. See, I think this is because there are two things that we, in some way, Shopify has, right? One is we have a lot of data, understanding, and empathy for e-commerce merchants and their businesses and their needs. And the second, we are in the money flow, which helps us to collect on some of these loans, which helps us to manage the risk so that we are able to serve the smallest of our SMBs. The smallest loan we offer is $200.
Right? Yeah. I mean, this is where there's a lot of growth happening in this space at the moment, the micro lending space. Like half of the loans that we bank, which is the biggest challenger bank, digital bank in the world out of Shenzhen, half of the loans they do are like under $150. That's why they have such an huge explosion in the unbanked population coming in. I want to talk about one of the big challenges is, when you're running a business, particularly, if you're learning to run a business at the same time as you're building it, managing the financial side of things tends to get complex, and you got to remember to pay your tax on time, and then if you start taking employees on, and you've got all these sort of complexities come in terms of the financial insights that you can give a merchant to help educate them on cash flow management and those sort of things. How does the app play into that?
I think there's a bunch of ways in which we help merchants understand what they need to do around managing money and guide them towards the right course of actions. Let me take a very specific example of sales tax, which is extremely complex thing for our merchants to manage, right? Because sales tax, first of all, a lot of our smallest merchants don't have to collect sales tax up to when they get to a certain level of scale in a certain location they have to collect that tax, but the tax that they need to collect depends on the different products and the categories they are in and so on, right? We automate all of that for our merchants. We basically will tell you when you should start collecting sales tax in a place based on your sales volume. Merchants can then turn on collection of sales with just a few clicks. And then what we do is we have an understanding of products, the taxonomy, what categorization of products, then we match it to the rules in terms of how much they should collect. We do all the calculations in an automated fashion and start collecting from every single order. And we do the next thing. What we also do is we help you set that money aside in a separate balance sub-account so that that money is there when it's time to file your taxes. Wow. So this is a really good example of where we are combining insights, automation, to really make something extremely complex for our merchants simple, right? But merchants always continue to have control. We are not automating it in such a way that they lose control. They still have control, but they can do this complex thing in a much, much simpler way.
What about on payables? Like with, because obviously Shopify brings all of these merchants that also, like, you've got back end shipping that's provided. You've got access to t-shirt manufacturers and people that make caps and coffee mugs and all of these sorts of things that you can bundle in as a merchant on that. So how do you manage things like bill payments?
So we have a tool for bill pay, which we built with Melio, which helps merchants manage all their bills in one single place. We haven't done this yet. I think one of the areas we are going into more and more is exactly what we're talking about, is help merchants optimize their spend, help make their dollars go further when they spend by giving you like insights and benchmarks about, hey, you may be spending a little too much on your shipping labels. You may want to optimize the purchase in this way. In the future, maybe you're buying too much inventory all at once. So maybe you want to spread it out so that your inventory cycles are faster. Maybe insights like, hey, merchants like you spend a lot more on ads. You should consider exploring ad campaigns on Meta or Google because that can help. I think these are the kind of spend insights and payables insights too. Again, our focus remains on how do we help merchants stretch their cash flow to grow their business, right? And what are those insights that we can bring to the table from a money standpoint to help them achieve that growth.
So obviously you guys must be thinking about AI a lot, because the next logical phase for me would be that Shopify Finance turns into an AI-based agent that can help you manage this stuff. Is that sort of where you guys are thinking about the future of this?
So yeah, I mean, I think we live in a very interesting time, Brett. We're thinking about a lot of these things, right? One is, first of all, I want to say we've been using ML for a very long time, and it covers all our fraud platform, our credit risk platform, and all of that, right? But as we move ahead, I think I see a couple of areas of applications of AI. One is, of course, for merchants creating in Shopify. What we already have a AI agent called Sidekick.
Okay.
Basically, we frame it as entrepreneurs are superheroes, and they should have a sidekick to help them on their journey. And Sidekick helps merchants and entrepreneurs around their commerce questions right now. Like if they have a question on how to run their commerce business, Sidekick help is an agent that is an assistant, basically. I think what we envision as we build out more of our financial services product, as we have more data, we would bring something like that to the finance job as well, to help merchants manage money better and so on, right? So there is one in terms of that, but then if you think about other workflows, a lot of manual workflows, for example, an accountant where you have to categorize tasks and so on, while ML can do a lot of work, AI agents can, there's going to be the new transaction that has never seen. The AI agent can do the work to try to categorize, right? That's another application. There are applications behind the scenes of AI, right? For sometimes we do have humans underwriting merchants, especially more complex merchants. Again, AI can, there's a lot of interesting use cases for AI to help with those manual workflows, right? Whether it's KYC verification or document verification sometimes, or whether it is manual underwriting. There's a lot of applications of AI that we are excited to incorporate into our products as we move forward.
You know, look, if I was in SME banking right now, I'd be terrified of platforms like Shopify. Because, you know, I know banks are your partners as well. So, you know, but think about this, you know, if you go to a bank as a merchant and you're trying to do all this stuff manually, like, you know, you're trying to set up your own store, you're trying to code that, your own store, and you're trying to set up these relationships with vendors to, you know, and suppliers to get you this. And you go into a bank, you know, and you say, listen, I need a bank account because I'm setting up this online store. The bank is just as likely to go, oh, that sounds very risky business. I don't know. Yeah. Well, come back when you've got some traction and we'll look at your financial statements before we can decide whether or not we can fund you and things like this. And, you know, and then that's even before we start talking about the complexity of managing accepting card payments and sales tax and you know, bill payments and all of those things you're talking about. So I really think for SMEs, we're going to start to see these communities built around platforms like Shopify, where they're running their business, and when they're going to expect these platforms just to manage their banking as well, because banking is one of those just invisible things that's just going to happen with the
tech. That's the term, invisible, in the sense that the more embedded and integrated, and banking essentially comes to you versus you going to the bank. I think that's the reality of this.
Yes.
Future, right? And it's already happening, right, Brett? I mean, I think there are elements of banking experience on the platforms like Uber to help drivers, on platforms like DoorDash, on I think like Amazon and Shopify. And I think this is a great thing, frankly. I think this has been SMBs or individual entrepreneurs have been like an underserved community.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
From a banking standpoint. And I think it's fantastic that all of these platforms are helping these merchants manage their money better, get access to their cash faster, have access to lending. So I think it's amazing.
So I'll tell you my last banking book, which it's 5 years ago now, which is called Bank 4.0. The subtitle was Banking Everywhere, Never at a Bank. So we're on the same page, bro. We're on the same page.
That's right.
Well, listen, it's been fantastic to have you on, and you know, I'd love to hear more about you know, what Shopify is doing in the future. So keep us informed. But you know, this is one of those things. Andreessen said every business is going to be a fintech, and Shopify sort of typifies that these days. Is as more and more as you look at embedded finance integrating into platforms like this. You can't help but, there's some integration with banks, but you can't help take on some of that sort of banking experience stuff and embed it in in the platform where people need the banking assistance, right? They don't need to stop what they're doing in Shopify, go and log into their internet banking and do stuff over there. If they can do it all within the Shopify platform, it's just going to make it easier for them. And of course, it's a great business model for you guys. So
yeah,
I think it's great.
It's the mantra we have: manage your money where you make it. And
absolutely.
Brett, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So just before we let you go, if people want to find out more about Shopify Finance, of course, they can sign up as a merchant, and it's in the merchant admin section and it's in the app. But where could they go to find out a bit about the financial support that Shopify provides merchants?
You can go to our website, shopify.com/finance. If you're not a merchant, you can explore all the offerings that we have and what we do in Shopify Finance. But if you're a merchant, please log in. Please log into your admin and you will see what Shopify Finance has in offer for you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us and giving us an update. Sounds really exciting. And I think the next thing for Breaking Banks in the future is to do is we're going to go set up a Shopify store like ASAP. So,
you should do it right away. We make it very easy. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Well, Vikram Anredi, Head of Product of Financial Services at Shopify. Thanks for joining us on Breaking Banks today.
Thank you.
That's it for another week of the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show, Breaking Banks. This episode was produced by our US-based production team, including producer Elizabeth Severance, audio engineer Kevin Hersham, with social media support from Sylvie Johnson. If you like this episode, don't forget to tweet it out or post it on your favorite social media, or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Facebook, or wherever it is that you listen to our show. Those actions help other people find our podcast, and in return, that helps us build an audience that can be supported by sponsorship, so we can continue to provide you with our award-winning content every week. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you on Breaking Banks next week.